welcome to King Tyravian's Paranormal, where we're going to talk about all kinds of things supernatural, scary stories from Reddit, and more. Tune in. Today's story is called Paper Street Haunting, and this was posted on Reddit by BurntSchmitz. Without any further ado, let's get started. Would moving all of our things in during the day really be wise in such an unsavory neighborhood? A bad neighborhood? Jacqueline growled snidely at what she perceived to be her husband's intentionally snarky eloquence. I hate it when you talk like that. Like what? I don't know. Greg snickered arrogantly. Not even you know what you meant by it. I know what I meant. Like you're above the rest of us. You're as blue-collar as anyone else around here. She wasn't wrong. They both came from virtually the same place, miles apart, and yet an impossibly tiny puncture wound on a U.S. map, injected with the drug of mediocre complacency. Isn't that everyone, he thought in silence. Can I never be something more? The brakes squealed as they pulled alongside the curb at 414 Paper Street. A day of fast-moving waves of metallic silver clouds, a thin mist scraping the sparse treetops and telephone poles, and tickling droplets of chilly autumn rain. There was almost nothing alluring about it. It was, after all, a starter home, but it jutted from the soggy grass like an eyesore. Its presentation, the placement of the second-floor windows, uneven panes by the white dividing wood slats, rolling up in the sockets like the eyes of annoyed parents over spilled milk, the front door carved into what appeared to be teeth, and the stark absence of any bushes or shrubbery save for some unattended weed growth, chin whiskers, though worn despondently dull red bricks and white sills. The gutters, piling with wet leaves, smattering drippings of accumulated water down the side, dancing and flipping to the ground, naturally, gracefully, splashing into puddles on the drab, rectangular concrete slabs, forming the walkway to the front and around back, soaking into the cracks, breeding even more unsightly weeds. It sneered at them with an impersonal disposition. I am what I am, and you have to just take it. This is your new house. I am it, so shut your mouths and come inside. Interrupting the story for 1 minute, one thing I would have to ask, especially going through the home buying process, is what kind of loan company would approve of this kind of house? I can understand starter homes, but we almost had to fight for our foreclosure, and it was almost new. Now, back to the story. It's plain, Greg observed. It's perfect. It's not a mansion, but you think of how we can fix it up. Jacqueline always saw things a tinge brighter than they really were, offsetting her husband's glass-half-empty attitude, as she has been for the last 4 years. It wasn't until later that night that Greg had fully absorbed the aging domicile, the wood floors smelling of aged wood, the old clanging pipes smelling of old metal clanging pipes. An immutable charm, he supposed, was its oldness, a stale taste in the formless air, the taste of must, some unseen mold formed in crevices and slit corners averse to sight without squinting or careful inspection, abound on all sides and ends, in darkness treaded only by nocturnally traversing centipedes on their nightly hunt. Tiny little cleaners of the night, watching all the time. Always watching. The front door opened up immediately to the staircase, tinted in sun at the bottom, leading up to the perpetual darkness, stretching impossibly high, much higher than the height of the home would appear from the outside. All floors constructed of dark mahogany wood. To the left, a dining room where rested their marble table they had bought from the apartment, leading further to a white-tiled kitchen dressed in a conspicuous light green, disdainfully torn and rippled in corners, the layers of paint crinkled at the tops. A spotty job at best, but most assured interest to Greg was the way the house seemingly spoke its own language. It groaned and settled, pipes thumping and banging at all hours of the day and night, like guffaws of baritone laughter, the floors creaking, rendering sneaking around an impossibility, grumbling and moaning in hieroglyphic mutterings, gentle stories of all those who dwelled within before the newlywed couple. It spoke out, I know where you're going, and what you're doing. You think I haven't seen breakfasts, gatherings, and slumber, arguments, and bickering? It projected the learned wisdom of decades spoken in codes through the cantankerous murmurs of an old man, sluggishly setting into a bath. I know it all, but I'm too tired, and all the same too bored to entertain unlearned fledglings like the two of you. Greg snickered at the old skeleton, pondering thoughtfully, and maybe even whispering, Okay, Cranky Pants. It's your space, we just live here. Mind us, and we'll mind you, if you'd be so kind. A loud bang resonated from the relatively unexplored and unusually dark basement beneath his feet in response, eliciting a skip to his heartbeat and an uncontrolled shiver as she retired to the bedroom and he sank into the couch. The first day over, the bedroom door located to the right atop the steps, just out of view from the bottom, shut calmly and left Greg to his thoughts. Thoughts of safety and sanctity of home and a new family. Thoughts of the housing projects 3 blocks away down the street and the high school catacornered to their yard up it. About who or what might pass by in the dark of night outside in the pitch blackness, or in the morning treading carelessly towards school, opening car doors, throwing rocks, those unsavory ones. Curious onlookers invading and peering into the living room, the unsavory personalities drifting to and from that impoverished housing plan. Interrupting the story again for a minute, I would have to ask, who would just make automatic assumptions just by seeing underfunded housing or other such things, especially when you're buying a house like this and calling it a starter home? I think some judgments shouldn't be made until they're due. Back to the story. Of the reasons behind the last family's departure, the images of microbial matter shot from noses and mouths in that same spot on the living room couch where the organisms had fallen, and how stacked up they might be, unclean for decades on end. The grated skin from shoulders and forearms or chins scratched thoughtlessly, hovering, floating, and sticking to the walls. Surely even the most fervent housekeeper or maid couldn't have possibly wiped it all up. Undoubtedly it existed, crawling, climbing, sauntering across the brand new, unstained white living room rug, fresh from IKEA. A draft suddenly wafted into and settled like a blanket over the house, or most specifically, over him. A chill ran through Greg's bones. Skin bubbled from a sudden, uncontrollable shudder when a strange sound emanated in increasing decibel motion as he pressed on the volume down button on the TV remote. It's coming from upstairs. This he assuredly said aloud, perceiving a fleeting notion that the house might cock its head in the same trajectory as he, only downward, listening intently, silently manipulating his train of thought. The sound of deliberately paced footsteps creaked on the floor above. Curious, Jacqueline must be up and going to the bathroom, though the door hinges hadn't audibly squealed. Another very heavy, slowly groaning step, and then another. The television, now muted. It came to be painfully obvious that it was coming from the other end of the second floor, in the new makeup room. The other bedroom, a room where Jacqueline had no rational purpose for walking around in at this late hour. Something was moving in slow, concentric circles around the room. It's settling, and it's old, he reminded himself. It's just us here. The pipes thudding again, giving way once more to an eerie stillness. The house was deliberate as the steps, only reacting when reacted to. But for an eternity of minutes, everything, every sound, squink, creak, clang, halted almost methodically. I'm tired. I'm just tired, and I shouldn't be watching a horror movie. Greg shut off the lights, leaving him just barely illuminated in the blue hues of the TV, kissing the drearily dim, stale-off white walls, and carefully approached the window, moving aside the curtain just momentarily and peering out. Nothing on the street or in the yard, but this didn't mean they weren't watching. He noticed a boy of about 12, watching, unwavering, earlier for 2 hours on the street corner, Greg and Jacqueline moving their things in. A robbery. They're casing us. I should buy a gun. Those uncouth savages at the other end of the block, ducking behind shrubs and hedges, waiting at street corners for others to join. The 70-inch screen TV, the couch, the tables, the bed, and countless boxes. Surely someone bared witness to our arrival. It's not safe here. His eyes impulsively careen from one side to the other, like a cat clock, meticulously observing shapes, and glares off the streetlights against houses and curbs, pondering the intruder's next steps. Ducking lower and pulling the curtain tighter, he exhaled. This place is making me... It's time for bed. At once he turned to face the open room, scanning the walls and observing various shapes and shadows, most especially at the plate on the wall in the dining room. But something was off. The glazed black plate casting a downward shadow in the shape of what appeared to be a person? His heart raced, and he stood motionless, frozen at the possibility as the figure leered back at him. Holy shit, someone was standing there, in the dining room. I thought it was just a plate, but there in front of the plate, the black silhouette of a human figure, he assured himself, was real. It's moving. I just saw its arm move, he told himself. Dread seethed beneath his skin, cold through his blood as he cautiously moved forward. Slow steps. 1, 2, 3. It's just the plate, he exhaled. But there was something unspeakably askew about the house, something transcendent of the rumblings and banging of exposed piping or timid knocking on random spots on the walls. Greg had never believed truly in hauntings, or ghosts, or ghouls. It's only a house. And yet still he paced speedily towards the light switch on the staircase wall, as he had not done since childhood, flicked on the light before going back and shutting off the TV. Something about the darkness and unpredictability of this noise infused game of chess between him and the dwelling. As he slogged up the stairs at a tired, glacial pace, the vision of that oddly conspicuous room in the basement flashed across his mind, and the filed-away notion that he felt watched from its dark corners earlier, and the barely lit dimness of the overhead bulb, permeated him with unease. So much more to explore, experience, and to, most especially, try to ignore. About the house and the local residents, he began to feel disoriented, like the steps were on a slant. Motion sickness. He ascended from the top step intentionally, turning away from the pitch-black corridor down by the other bedroom. He slipped under the covers to hear his wife comfortably snoring, and he exhaled one more. Everything's gonna be fine. But why? Why would anyone wall off a random, non-existent space in the basement? That never seems to shut up. Those big, ugly bricks, painted over in chipped white paint, those bricks just take up space. Why not just leave it? After all, it's just a fucking basement. To be continued. Hey everybody, King Tyravian here. Hope you're liking the story so far. Being my first episode of my podcast, this story has 3 more parts to it. If you would like to hear more, please let me know in the comments or on social media. You can follow anything on the link below for the link tree. Thank you. One thing I would like to know is, what would you like to hear about the paranormal? What are your interests, hobbies, or just wish you could do? Me, personally, I wish I could go on a real ghost hunt. But not just a ghost hunt around town or one of those ones you book. I'd rather go to a place like Waverly Hills, an actual insane asylum, and be able to investigate there. Let me know in the comments what kind of things you would like to do in regards to the supernatural.